And we do have on the line, speaking of everybody being impacted, crossing party lines, we do have the Minnesota GOP chair, Alex Plechash, on the line with us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us, Alex. We appreciate it. We'll just start off your reaction when you heard the news of what had happened this morning.
Well, it was surreal, frankly. Interestingly and ironically, I was on my way to one of our big Republican meetings that we have annually, our state central committee meeting, halfway to the venue when I heard, and obviously they changed things. This was not the day to have partisan types of meetings, even if they are legitimate. So what happened for me is I went and I gavelled the meeting into order, and I made a statement. We said a prayer, silent moments for the families, and then I gavelled us back out and said we'll just carry on with this at some other point. So this is a time for us to show some kind of unity, to not play partisan politics. While I was waiting to get logged in here, I was really dismayed to hear, Keith Ellison out there being as partisan as can be with bombastic rhetoric, when this is really a time we should be somber and thinking about those families and not being, playing politics. It really is a time for unity.
Alex, can you tell us a little bit about, we just, as you were probably learning here in the last hour or so, we now have an identification on a suspect, someone that law enforcement is looking for. And there are some questions about, because as you know, people are going to, and they will continue to say, well, this was because it's politically motivated, this was a Republican or this was a Democrat. Tell us a little bit about this, the Governor's Workforce Development Council. We understand this is a bipartisan council here that the suspect was a part of.
Well, quite honestly, I know very little, if anything, about what that council was about. Yeah. And all this information is breaking for me too. Okay. I don't know this individual. I'd never heard the name before. He was obviously someone that was appointed by Governor Dayton originally, and then Governor Walz. Beyond that, I think it's irresponsible for me to make any comment about something I don't really know.
Yeah. Can you tell just what would you say is the impact on lawmakers, on yourself, of something like this? I mean, I think it's really terrifying for anyone, opening up your door in the middle of the night. But I have to imagine that things will, change for a while for lawmakers in terms of their personal safety or what they feel about being safe, and then possibly maybe some physical changes as far as protecting them.
Well, yeah, I think everyone is now very concerned, and I suspect there will be some kind of changes, certainly in the near term, maybe long-lasting effects, who knows. What it pointed out to me, as I pondered it just a little bit, is, when we can disagree on politics and we can debate each other, but no matter what vote is taken by whoever makes that vote, a death sentence is not appropriate, and that's what happened here. And that is so tragic, and it's the world we're living in right now. We all have to be more vigilant, and all elected leaders or people in any sort of political leadership role, as I am here as a Republican Party chair, or even in my role as a city councilman here in Wayzata, we now have to be extra vigilant for people like this. It's really sad. I will say this, thanks to the quick-thinking law enforcement, what I've heard is that because of them, more lives were saved, perhaps, because the guy apparently had a hit list and only got to the first two.
Right. I know this is a big question, but any thoughts or ideas on what we can do to calm the violent rhetoric and the violence in general that's kind of going on, the atmosphere, just to kind of put a little bit of a temper on it to just get everyone to kind of calm down?
That's a great question. It seems like things have been getting worse and worse over the years, going back quite a ways. I would come back to faith and our faith community. I think it's a time for prayer. I think it's time for all of us to reflect on what's truly important. And politics probably isn't it. It's family and friends and so on. If we can just settle back and know what the country was really all about, and that's, faith, family, and friends. I know that that's what's been happening in my life, and I've been reaching out to the faith community to ask people to pray. I ask people to pray, not for me particularly, but pray for wisdom and leadership, and that goes to both sides, all sides. You know, we could debate, but we need to exercise some wisdom here. And if we just start talking to each other, I think things will settle down.
How about among sort of your colleagues, you know, as they come to you and you have conversations about where we go from here? We heard from one lawmaker earlier who said, you know, you got to think about, is this worth it? Is this worth it? I mean, what will your conversations be like in the coming days with folks who you're close with?
Well, ironically, part of the speech that I was going to give today at our state central committee meeting talked about unity and coming together. Of course, in that context, it was more about within the party, but it applies across parties as well. And so I tell people, you know, my thoughts about how it is so critically important to know that we can agree to disagree, but still part friends. That's true between Republicans, but it's also true between legislators on opposite sides of the aisle. We have to just keep fighting for this to bring unity back to the country. When I grew up, and well before I was involved in politics, it seemed like people could actually talk to each other. Early in my young adulthood, I remember the days of, you know, President Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill as Speaker of the House. They were on opposite sides of the aisle, and yet they got along and they got together afterwards. And, you know, why can't we be like that? You know, those are the kinds of things I would tell the people who approach me.
All right. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on what has just become such a dark day for us here as Minnesotans, but particularly for those of you who worked with Speaker Emeritus Melissa Hortman, and of course we're wishing the best for Senator John Hoffman and his wife as they continue to recover from their wounds as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.